Hello, welcome to the channel Why Stories. Enjoy watching.
Mother-in-law grinned triumphantly as the bride gathered her belongings under the watchful eye of her husband's pregnant lover. And upon inheriting, the woman saw at the doorstep. Her heel was firmly stuck in the iron grate and stubbornly refused to leave its new refuge. Agata cursed, looked around, and freed her foot from the temporary trap. The shoe remained in place. Agata squatted and began to tug at the troublesome wardrobe item, trying not to damage the heel. She still had to meet a very important person, whose eyes wouldn't miss a detail like ruined footwear. It was better not to risk it. The iron bars of the grate clung to the heel as tightly as an enraged bull terrier to a bone, but Agata wasn't accustomed to giving up so easily. She no longer cared that she stood with one foot directly in the dust, and sharp stones mercilessly tore at her stockings. As luck would have it, or perhaps fortunately, there was no one nearby, and the girl couldn't even ask for help. "Oh, to hell with you," she exclaimed in frustration, refraining from spitting on the shoe. "Do you think I can't manage without you? I'll manage just fine, even if I have to go barefoot. Can I help you?" Unexpectedly, a male voice sounded right next to her ear. Agata jumped and turned around. Before her stood a handsome young man in work overalls. "Oh," the girl stammered, flustered, "yes, I wouldn't mind some help. You see, I'm stuck." Without asking unnecessary questions, the guy skillfully extracted the shoe from the trap and handed it to Agata. From the side, it all looked as if a rather battered prince was offering Cinderella to try on a crystal slipper on a high heel. Agata awkwardly took the shoe from the stranger's hands, deftly put it on her foot, and smiled. "You're, so to speak, my savior. I was already thinking of giving up and going barefoot." "Well, that would have been a mistake," the guy laughed. "Shoes like yours are expensive, you can't just throw them away. Besides, there are no hopeless situations in life. Never give up, even if it seems like all is lost." "I'll try," Agata smiled and waved goodbye to the stranger. She still had to walk a couple of houses to reach her destination. Agata quickened her pace, as being late was not part of her plans. Agustin Gonzalez was already waiting for her at his usual spot. Agata fluttered into the cozy cafe and headed straight for the man. "Agata, my little bird," Agustin exclaimed, rising from the couch and scrutinizing the girl from head to toe, "and you look beautiful, as always." "Thank you," Agata blushed slightly. "Agustin Gonzalez, forgive me for being late, there was a force majeure." No, it's not that, I came earlier," the man hurried to reassure her, but Agata saw a barely noticeable displeasure flicker in his eyes. "Let's not waste any time, I'll show you everything right away." Agata pulled out a voluminous catalog from her bag and placed it in front of her. "Is there anything interesting?" The man immediately perked up. "I think so," Agata nodded. "You know, Agustin Gonzalez, I always show everything to you first. You're highly esteemed with us. We just finished the catalog, and Cecilia Lopez immediately sent me to you. This time there's a lot of Chinese porcelain. As far as I remember, that's your thing." "Oh yes." Augustin's eyes lit up, and he eagerly pored over the catalog. "I'm more into imperial porcelain, you know, considering my collection, but I won't refuse from China. It always appreciates in value, and it's visually pleasing. Have you seen how exquisitely those vases and figurines are always crafted?" Agata worked in a private gallery, and Augustin was considered one of the city's foremost art connoisseurs. He was an avid collector, investing substantial amounts in antiques. Agata was his favorite agent. They were introduced by the girl's grandfather, Carlos Martinez, who dedicated his entire life to antiques. Augustin had been a longtime friend of her grandfather, and they had once hunted for precious art objects together. Porcelain was their shared passion. However, as Carlos grew older, his enthusiasm waned, and his illness began to take its toll. Grandfather admired Agata's passion for antiques. When she was just a little girl, they would spend hours in his shop. The girl, holding her breath, would examine porcelain figurines reflecting the spirit of different epochs and peoples, while Carlos would enthusiastically tell her millions of stories. This hobby eventually grew into a profession. Agata graduated from the Institute of Culture, specializing in restoration, a not-so-popular field. Thanks to her grandfather's connections, she began working at the local state gallery. The profession wasn't lucrative, but it was fascinating. Agata enthusiastically experimented with reagents, special restoration mixtures, painstakingly restoring masterpieces on the brink of oblivion. It seemed like a real miracle to her. She didn't particularly need money. By the city's standards, her grandfather was a wealthy man. He didn't drive his beloved granddaughter to work herself to exhaustion. Agata's passion flattered him, and besides, he openly took pride in instilling in the girl the values he cherished most. But a few years passed, and Agata was offered a promising position at the newly opened private gallery. Its owner, Cecilia Lopez, had been a longtime acquaintance of her grandfather, so her career quickly took off. Starting as an assistant, Agata quickly settled in and within a year became a senior art expert. She not only had a good understanding of art, but also knew how to connect with even the most fastidious clients. One of such clients was Agustin Gonzalez. "Great selection," Agustin exclaimed, clicking his tongue as he closed the catalog. "Could you lend me this edition for a couple of days? I already know I'd like to purchase a few things, but I'd like to study them more thoroughly. At my age, moods change suddenly, something else might catch my fancy. I love to contemplate, even a photograph can sometimes captivate me to the point where I want to own the original." "Of course," nodded the girl. "Just please, don't take too long, because Cecilia Lopez wants to organize an exhibition presentation in 2 months. We need to prepare the exhibition. She has already invited so many guests that I feel like I won't have any peace. You know that everything relies on me." "Don't worry, my dear," the man patted her hand. "I'll give you a final answer in the next few days. And I'll call Cecilia myself, tell her I want to postpone. Don't worry about the commissions." "I'm not worried," Agata blushed. "It's more about the exhibition. I want to get everything done. And there's chaos at home too." "What's wrong?" Augustine grew concerned. "Maybe I can help with something." "No," the girl shook her head. "It's personal, everything's fine. It's just that everything piled up all at once. Don't keep it to yourself, Agata. If I can help, I will." "Thank you, Agustin Gonzalez." "Okay, I'll leave the catalog. Then call as soon as you decide. Goodbye, I'll go on with my errands. See you soon. Say hello to your grandfather." "I will. You should go see him. I rarely go myself, but he's not doing well at all." "Is his heart acting up?" "Yes," Agata sighed. "I'm so worried about him." "Don't worry, my dear, everything will be fine." Agata said goodbye and left the cafe. She had no more plans for the day. Cecilia Lopez ordered her to go home right after the meeting. But Agata didn't want to go home at all. She went into the nearest pastry shop and bought a couple of dairy pastries. Holding the bright box tightly, the girl headed to the house on the waterfront where her grandfather lived. The door didn't open for a long time. Agata hadn't brought the keys with her, as today's visit to her grandfather was unplanned. Strange, she nervously tapped her fingertips on the door. Did he go somewhere? And the phone is silent again, he forgot it. What kind of person is he? He knows I worry when he doesn't answer the phone. Agata was about to leave when Carlos finally opened it. "Agata," he waved his hands in surprise. "What a joy! I didn't expect you. Why no call?" "Oh," he waved dismissively. "What are you making up?" "I just fell asleep, I'm not young anymore, and sleep overtook me. I woke up early today, and that's why." "All right, Grandpa, everything's fine. Look what I brought." Agata squinted mysteriously and showed him the box of pastries. "I know it's bad for you, but what joy is there in life without something sweet?" "That's true, my dear," Carlos laughed. "Let's just make it until 6, otherwise that wretched nurse will come to give me injections if she sees me not behaving." Well, we still have 40 minutes, nodded the granddaughter. I'll stay with you for a bit, otherwise they'll think I got lost at home. You should at least tell me how you're doing. You're looking all pale. Are you tired? Oh, Grandpa, everything's fine, just a lot of work. We're getting ready for a new exhibition. I just met with Agustin Gonzalez. He sends you warm regards and promised to come visit. Ah, Agustin, Carlos chuckled contentedly. I haven't seen him in a while. He's busy too. I wish he'd visit his old friend more often. Probably decided to snatch up something more valuable again? Yes, we got a lot of Chinese porcelain in. I gave him the catalog. His eyes lit up. You can tell he's already picked out a couple of pieces for himself. Ah, I remember. There was a time when I wouldn't mind buying something myself. But what's the use? There's no point in collecting anymore. My time is short. Come on, Grandpa, what's with the pessimism again? You're only 76. You have many years ahead. We have good longevity in our family. Your father lived to 100, and you're already burying yourself. So what if your heart's acting up? It's not such a big problem with today's level of medicine. Just take care of yourself. You should come to visit me more often, Agata. When I see you, I feel young again. You have such positive energy. I'd love to, but you know, I really don't have time. And at home. What's going on at home? Is that witch driving you crazy again? Where's Celio looking? I wouldn't allow a mother to treat her daughter-in-law like that for anything. It's time for you to live separately. You've been married for 5 years, and it's still the same. And there's an empty apartment. He doesn't want to, says it's your apartment. He feels uncomfortable. Uncomfortable for him? Carlos exclaimed. And it's comfortable for you to constantly endure her nitpicking? And why does she dislike you so much? I have no idea. If before it was tolerable, then the last 6 months, it's like she's gone off the deep end. It's not my business, granddaughter, but I believe if you want a peaceful family life, you need to move out. It will only get worse. I know that type of woman. She won't rest until she's completely drained you. And what about the kids? What then? Grandpa, Agata suddenly became serious. You know that Celio and I can't have children. Clara Perez is furious about it. She wants grandchildren, but I can't give them to her. As soon as she found out about my condition, she started her attacks. It feels like she's deliberately trying to drive a wedge between Celio and me so that he finds someone else who can give him an heir. Oh, what an inheritance. What do they have behind them? Just an apartment and an old country house. If I were your mother-in-law, I would be protecting you instead. When I die, everything will go to you. Grandpa, why are you saying that? Agata was upset. Celio and I love each other. He has never been interested in your money. Maybe not him, but Clara Perez. I had the pleasure of talking to her. She was trying to find out the size of my capital. You don't choose your relatives, but living with them under the same roof is like nailing nails into your own coffin lid. Come on, stop it. Everything will be fine with us. I'm almost always at work, Celio too. We only see each other in the evenings. And on weekends, Clara Perez usually goes to the country house or to her friends. I can see how fine everything is with you. You're not even rushing home. I'm not rushing because I came to see you and I want to spend more time here, Agata smiled. So what if the mother-in-law is a witch? It's like that in every other family, and they still manage to live. I feel sorry for you, Agata. Carlos patted her head. I just want you to be happy. I'm already happy, Grandpa. His granddaughter nuzzled into his neck. I have a husband, a job I love, you. And I don't need anything else. It's just that you're all I have, Carlos smiled, and you've suffered enough in your life. You lost your parents early. That's why I worry. I understand everything, Grandpa. Agata kissed him on the cheek. But believe me, everything is fine with me. By the way, can you imagine, today I got my heel stuck in a sidewalk grate, got completely stuck, barely managed to free myself. Luckily, there are still good people in the world. At exactly 6 o'clock, the doorbell rang. The nurse had arrived. Agata stayed with her grandfather for a while longer and then went home. It was drizzling outside. She hailed a taxi and was standing at her apartment door in just 10 minutes. Celio wasn't home. Agata was surprised. The clock showed 9. He usually returned by this time. But instead, Clara Perez met her at the door. "And where have you been?" Clara Perez grumbled unhappily. "I was at work, then I stopped by to see Grandpa." "Why do you ask?" Agata replied calmly. She stopped by to see Grandpa. Celio came home, no dinner, no wife. "Where is he?" "I thought he hadn't come back yet." Agata was surprised. "And you should have answered the phone when your husband called, then maybe you would have known," Clara Perez retorted. Agata looked at her smartphone screen in bewilderment. "I usually answer," she said. "Usually? How can you be so irresponsible?" Clara seethed. "But I don't have any missed calls or messages." "Did he call the office or something?" "Because I don't take my work phone with me after leaving the gallery." "But you should. You should always be available." "I am available," Agata protested, feeling anger bubbling inside her. "He's not stupid. He should understand. If I don't answer my work phone, he should call my personal one. Anyway, this is all nonsense." "So where is Celio?" Clara Perez. "Do you know?" "He went to see his friends, said he won't be back today." "How can he not come back?" Agata's eyebrows rose. "Just like that," Clara smirked. "They went fishing. Don't expect him back until Sunday." "But why didn't he even warn me?" Agata didn't even understand what was happening. "Why does he need to warn you? He's a grown man. It's the weekend ahead. Or are you against your husband having personal time? You know, girl, such control won't lead to anything good." "What control?" Agata raised her voice. "Do I forbid him anything?" "But simply to call and say that he's leaving, especially for almost 3 days." Agata immediately dialed her husband's number, but his phone was turned off. "Don't even try to reach him," Clara gritted through her teeth. "There's no signal. He's been on the road for 3 hours already. He said he'd call when he's in network." "This is ridiculous," Agata shook her head. "Okay, if you say so, then so be it. I don't see the point in continuing this argument further. I'm tired, Clara Perez. Can I just go rest?" "I didn't cook dinner," Clara smirked. "Celio isn't here anyway, and you can make something for yourself. You've gotten too lazy. Do you even remember the last time you cooked?" "I don't understand something, Clara Perez," Agata suddenly snapped. "As far as I remember, you insisted vehemently that I shouldn't stand behind the stove. Celio can't do it. He doesn't like it. Mom knows better." "Thank you very much, of course, for taking over the cooking, but I didn't ask for it. If you don't want to, I'll cook for myself without any problems, especially since no one canceled delivery. You don't need to worry, I won't starve." "Oh, look who's talking!" Clara Perez exclaimed indignantly. "Don't forget, dear, that you live in my apartment, which means you follow my rules. How come you don't speak up in front of Celio? Just so you know, I'll tell him everything about how you behave with me." "Go ahead, do what you want," Agata shouted. "Do you think I'm glued to your apartment? I don't know how you handle Celio, making him not want to move out, but I promise, as soon as he returns, I'll bring up this issue again." On Saturday, Clara Perez went to her country house. Agata, waking up, was glad for her absence. As expected, her mother-in-law didn't prepare breakfast, but the girl wasn't upset at all. She quickly mixed some batter and fried a whole bunch of tasty pancakes, which she almost all ate herself. Agata didn't need to watch her figure closely. She belonged to that rare breed of people who, no matter what they eat, always stay trim and neat. Agata was happy with her physique because with her busy work schedule, she couldn't exercise, and it would be unforgivable to be on a diet. She expended so much energy during the day that if she ate sparingly, she would simply collapse on the go. After finishing the last pancake, Agata stretched, washed the dishes, and dialed Celio's number. The phone remained silent. Well, this is something, she thought, to leave like that and not say a word. I bet Clara Perez filled his head with lies, swore she'd tell me everything, and look at her now. Well, it's easier not to pay attention. I'd better think about what to do today. It's a day off after all. The weather is nice. Maybe I'll go to the cemetery? I haven't been there in ages. I should take Grandpa with me. Hello, Grandpa, Agata chirped happily into the phone when Carlos answered. My little bird, greetings. Didn't expect this. Why are you up so early? Grandpa, listen, I was thinking, maybe we should visit my parents' grave today. It's been a while. Would you like to meet? Let's go, of course, Grandpa replied. But what about Celio? Aren't you supposed to be with him today? He's gone. I'm home alone, so I thought, when else will I be able to get out? Let's get ready then. I'll call a taxi now, and we'll go together. I'm waiting. Agata got dressed and skipped out onto the street. She stopped by a flower kiosk and bought white lilies, then called a taxi and headed to her grandpa's place. Carlos Martinez was already waiting for her at the entrance. He looked quite sprightly. Apparently, the new medication prescribed by his doctor was doing a good job, as there was a blush on his cheeks. Hello, Grandpa, she kissed him on the cheek as he got into the taxi. You look fresh and lively, I must say. Oh, you should have seen how that caregiver tortured me yesterday. Women like her are not made anymore. Where did you find her? She'll drag me back from the dead if she has to. Do you like her? The girl laughed. You're just so lonely, and this nurse, she's good. Cecilia Lopez recommended her to me. She used to sit with my mom. Tough, yes, I won't argue, but she does her job excellently. And you always have something to chat about with her, I'm sure. Oh, yes, the grandfather choked back laughter. This lady outdoes everyone. I never could have imagined she'd be so keen on art. Not as a professional, of course, but still, we talked to her for hours. But at least it's not boring. I'm glad. Agata rested her head on her grandfather's shoulder. And I bought some flowers for Mom and Dad. Look how beautiful they are. Yes, Elena used to love them so much. We had a flower garden in our old house, and your grandmother always planted white lilies. Little Elena would always hide among the flower beds, covered in pollen, and we'd run around looking for her. Oh, how many years have passed? The taxi pulled up to the cemetery. Agata and her grandfather stepped out in front of the massive wrought iron gates and headed down the main alley. Along the way, they admired the ornate monuments. The birds were singing very loudly. It was early autumn, but it was still very warm, and the sun was shining as if it were still summer, piercing through the dense, yet to turn yellow, foliage, with millions of rays flickering on the cobblestones. Finally, they reached the spot. A tall monument of gray granite cast a large shadow. From the polished slab, men and a woman smiled, forever immortalized on the lifeless stone. Agata's fingers touched the cold, smooth surface. She gently stroked the faces and placed the flowers she had brought into a jar, taking out a dried bouquet left from the previous visit. Hello, Elena, Carlos muttered. Hello, Felipe. I'm sorry we don't come to see you often. I'm very ill. I guess I'll be joining you forever soon. Grandpa, Agata frowned, again with this. Mom, Dad, don't listen to him. I'll take care of Grandpa. You'll have to manage without him for now. Agata's parents died together. They were both passionate about mountaineering. Carlos Martinez, who lost his wife early, cherished his daughter Elena more than any treasure, but the girl was very active and ambitious. When she married Felipe, Agata's father, her happiness knew no bounds. Carlos didn't have much hope for his son-in-law, although they had practically no common interests. But it was enough for him to know that Felipe loved Elena and was ready to do anything for her. The energetic young couple had been passionate about mountaineering since college, when Elena and Felipe were in the same class. Carlos didn't like his daughter's hobby very much because every ascent was associated with great risk, but it was useless to dissuade Elena. With Felipe's arrival, Carlos calmed down a bit. The strong man could always support his fragile wife, and he chose less dangerous routes. Often, they didn't even climb mountains, just practiced on climbing walls. And when Elena became pregnant, they completely abandoned their passion. The birth of Agata brought great joy to the house. The girl was very advanced for her age. She learned to walk and talk early. Her parents immediately became actively involved in her education, enrolling her in 1,000 circles, giving her the opportunity to choose activities she liked. But most of all, little Agata liked to spend time in her grandfather's antique shop, where she often ran away from her endless dance, painting, fencing, and chess classes. Her parents didn't even suspect that their daughter was skipping, because every evening, her grandfather brought her home, happy and smiling, holding her hand, covering up his granddaughter's secret passion. When Agata entered the 3rd grade, her parents suddenly announced that they planned to conquer another peak soon. Conquering this mountain had been their long-standing shared dream. After almost a decade-long break, the mountain trip was quite dangerous, but, as Felipe liked to joke, once an alpinist, always an alpinist. No one could even imagine that this trip would be their last in their lives. The death of the married couple Carlos was reported a week after Elena and Felipe had left. Agata still remembered how her grandfather turned pale and literally shrank before her eyes when he heard the dreadful news over the phone. There were few details. Both fell from a cliff. Felipe's harness failed, and he, being the first to fall, dragged Elena, who hadn't secured her hook in time, with him. The bodies were not found immediately. Agata barely remembered the funerals. Both she and her grandfather seemed to be in a state of oblivion, unwilling to accept the dreadful truth. Numerous relatives and family friends took on the organization of the funerals, memorial services, and other events. Agata abandoned her studies and stopped talking. Her grandfather, on the contrary, threw himself into work, hired a governess for his granddaughter, and after closing his shop, rushed home to make sure Agata was okay. He hired a psychologist who came to talk to the girl daily, engaging her in heartfelt conversations, constantly seeking ways to pull her out of her emotional state. For the 10-year-old girl, what had happened was a true nightmare, as her parents had meant almost everything to her. Gradually, Agata began to recover. Riding lessons proved to be very helpful. At first, Carlos simply brought his granddaughter to the equestrian center. The psychologist claimed that such activities were very effective in treating emotional trauma. By petting the horses, feeding them sugar and apples, the girl gradually began to speak and eventually asked to ride a horse. Carlos spared no expense for his granddaughter. Visits to the equestrian center became regular. He even bought her a horse, which Agata visited twice a week to take care of. Over the years, the wound healed. Agata and her grandfather often visited the cemetery, where they could have conversations with the smiling faces of Elena and Felipe frozen in eternity. After finishing school, Agata entered an art institute. She enjoyed studying there. She continued to live with her grandfather. Although he had bought her a separate apartment, the girl didn't want to be far from her most beloved person in the world. Everything changed when she started working at a state gallery. Only on weekends could Agata spend time with her grandfather. On weekdays, she often stayed late, trying to restore yet another masterpiece damaged by time. On that day, Agata was delayed longer than usual. A large collection of ancient mosaics had been brought in, and the entire staff was working on sorting out the tiniest details. Agata returned home after midnight, having informed her grandfather in advance. When she entered the apartment, she immediately sensed something was wrong. Carlos rarely went to bed before 2 in the morning, but this time he didn't even come out to meet his granddaughter or, as was his custom, offer a late dinner. Agata noticed that the light was on in the kitchen and immediately ran there without even taking off her shoes. Carlos was lying on the floor with his arms outstretched. Agata's heart constricted as she approached her grandfather and felt for a pulse. There was none. In horror, Agata called an ambulance and waited. She immediately remembered everything she had been taught in her life safety classes: direct heart massage, artificial respiration. In desperate attempts, Agata pressed on her grandfather's chest and cried. Suddenly, he let out a prolonged wheeze and fluttered his eyelids. Then a weight lifted from Agata's soul. She began kissing her grandfather, drenching his face with her tears. The ambulance arrived quickly, but by that time Carlos had already regained consciousness. He adamantly refused hospitalization, but Agata was unyielding. Later they learned that Carlos Martinez suffered from heart failure and that if Agata had returned even a minute later that day, nothing could have been done. Fate had decreed otherwise. Since then, a woman had been working permanently in their home, combining the roles of a housekeeper and caregiver. Agata quit her job and found work at a private gallery where the schedule was more forgiving. It was there that she met Celio. Celio arrived only in the evening on Sunday. Agata sat in her room, trying not to attract her mother-in-law's attention. Finally, she greeted her husband indignantly. "Well, how am I supposed to understand this?" "Agata, let's not start," Celio shrugged. "I'm tired and I'm hungry." "Celio, are you serious? You've been gone for 2 days, you didn't even warn me that you were leaving. And now you just ignore it. Why should I report to you? I called you to warn you, but you didn't even pick up the phone. And yet it's all my fault. I'm not blaming you for anything, but this is not how it's done. And you called my work phone, you know perfectly well my main number." "Okay, stop it. I just wanted to relax, and then the guys invited me. I explained everything to Mom. Didn't she say anything to you?" "She did, and more than that, it's a separate conversation. After all, I am your wife, and involving Mom is not the best solution. Especially since you know very well how she feels about me. Both of you are getting on my nerves." Celio suddenly got angry. "You can't agree on anything. What did she do to you?" "She did to me?" Agata started to boil. "That's the point, she didn't do anything. But I have no idea what I did to her. You're always on her side, even if you see she's wrong. Show some respect for her age, Agata." "Respect her age? What nonsense. She's not old, she's perfectly fine, although I'm starting to doubt that." "All right," Celio pressed his lips together. "I don't know what happened here. I can only guess there was another argument. I'll talk to her, but please, show a little patience. I'm already at my wit's end, my love. She's already started to criticize my cooking. Please, let's move out, we have somewhere to live. I can't stand being in the same territory with her anymore. Usually people try their best to move out from their parents, but we have the opportunity, and for some reason, you're stuck on it. What's the problem?" "Agata, you know that apartment is very far from my work. It's inconvenient to commute. I don't want to wake up half an hour earlier, and surely you wouldn't like having to cook and clean. Mom takes care of the whole house. You work late, and I don't want to eat convenience foods. These are just excuses. Millions of women manage somehow, working and managing the household, and I can too. Please, Celio, just think about it. I just can't do it anymore. You know, it's better to sacrifice time than slowly but surely destroy our mental health and our marriage." "All right," Agata's husband kissed her on the forehead. "I'll think about it and talk to Mom. By the way, where's the fish?" "What fish?" Celio looked puzzled. "Oh, you mean we just went camping? What's the point of bringing those perch home? You can't cook anything out of them anyway." "Well, yeah," Agata pondered. "Although we could have dried them, I love dried river fish. And then Mom would have given us a hard time for the bunch of fish hanging on the balcony, right?" "No, thanks," the man laughed. "Okay, let's go have dinner. I'm damn hungry." "You go ahead. I don't want to see Clara Perez right now, especially since I've already eaten. Hurry back, I miss you." 2 months passed. Celio never thought of moving, citing heavy workload at work. Every day he stayed late, but Agata didn't even notice, as she was working hard, preparing for the exhibition. She even had to spend weekends in the gallery. The girl was only glad about it, as it meant she didn't have to cross paths with her mother-in-law unnecessarily. But she hardly saw her husband either. Celio was in a bad mood in the evenings, went to bed and just turned away, and in the morning he rushed to work. The presentation at the gallery went extremely well. They managed to sell many exhibits, even her grandfather pleased with his presence. But after the event, Cecilia Lopez called Agata aside. "Agata," she began in a suave tone, "I know you've been working hard and are probably very tired." A little, the girl shyly smiled. "I have a small business proposal for you. Basically, I'd like you to take a vacation next month, but... Agata squinted, sensing some catch. "I need you to go somewhere," Cecilia Lopez sighed. "I know you're not big on business trips, but I have a lot on my plate right now. And I can't trust anyone else with this." "And where to?" "To the capital." "Agata, just for a week, maximum 2. There's this old acquaintance of mine who's got something interesting going on. He's ready to give us a huge collection of copperware and silver for realization. We can't miss this opportunity. We need to go, see what he has, pick out options for our gallery. He also has paintings. I've been after them for a long time. The man is not young anymore. He's been sitting on his treasures like a miser. Now he's selling them off. And you trust me with such a responsible task?" Agata was surprised. "Who else? You've been working for me for so long, there's no better specialist. Besides, you'll be able to assess the collection accurately, estimate the restoration works. I'll pay you for everything, don't worry, and I won't forget about the bonus. I would go myself, but you understand." "All right," Agata thought for a moment. "I'll go, especially since the atmosphere at home is a bit tense right now, and I didn't want to leave Grandpa alone. I promise you, I'll personally drop by Carlos Martinez's a couple of times. We haven't really talked heart to heart in a long time. Don't worry, besides, you'll be able to have some fun, it's such a huge city. Francisco Jimenez, our client, has a very interesting house right in the city center, an old mansion. I assure you, this trip will do you good, and you'll be able to learn a lot for yourself, as a professional, as well." "All right, you've convinced me," Agata smiled. "I hope Celio won't mind too much." Celio didn't mind. He was even pleased that Agata was going on a business trip. "You seem strangely enthusiastic," the girl frowned when she told her husband about the upcoming trip. "What's strange about it?" Celio was surprised. "I'm very happy for you. I would gladly go to the capital for a week or 2 myself, especially on someone else's dime. Besides, I'm so tired, it's time for a vacation. By the way, speaking of vacation," Agata looked embarrassed. "Cecilia Lopez promised me one next month. Maybe you should take one too? We could go somewhere, especially since they'll pay me well for the business trip. Maybe we could go to the sea, and after the exhibition, the commissions will be decent too." "That wouldn't be bad," Celio winked. "Let's think about it. For now, you just go and don't worry about anything. And Mom will calm down, she's been provoking conflicts again lately. By the way, you still haven't decided anything about moving? Darling, let's decide after the new year. You won't be back until mid-December. Who moves before the holidays? What's wrong with that? New year, new home, it's all very symbolic," Agata chuckled. "I can't leave Mom alone for the holidays. Let's do it like this, you come back, then we celebrate, then we go on vacation, and then we move." "Promise?" exclaimed the girl, surprised by her husband's compliance. "Promise," nodded Celio and hugged his wife. The trip to the capital went very well. Francisco Jimenez turned out to be a pleasant elderly man confined to a wheelchair. He enthusiastically told Agata about his huge collection, demonstrating all his treasures and accompanying it all with fascinating stories. With plenty of free time, the girl spent her time walking around. The northern capital was bustling with preparations for New Year's celebrations. The rich illumination on the streets created an illusion of a fairy tale. Agata had been to this city twice before, once as a child with her parents and once when she was in college. Now she was simply admiring the city, warming up in coffee shops, taking lots of photos, and reporting everything to her grandfather. They often communicated via video. Carlos Martinez loved this city. In his youth, he often went there for work and stayed there for a long time. It was here that he met his future wife, but after her death, he never returned. "Grandpa," Agata exclaimed excitedly, showcasing the brightly lit cathedral and the evening landscape to Carlos, "we absolutely must come here together." "Where to, my dear?" chuckled Grandpa. "I'm not as young as I used to be to travel. I'll see it through your happy face." "No, Grandpa," Agata objected, "it's different in person, it's somehow more festive. It smells like a celebration here. Let's definitely come in the summer. Promise me. I know you love this city." "I do, Agata, but I'm afraid I won't live until summer." "Okay, Grandpa," Agata frowned, "if you mention death again, I won't talk to you." All right, I won't." "Okay, you convinced me, let's go." "But didn't you plan to go on vacation in winter, to the sea?" "There'll be a lot to do in the summer." "It's nothing, I'll negotiate with Cecilia Lopez, especially since she often comes here. I can ask to go instead of her, mix business with pleasure." "Oh, Grandpa, it's so beautiful here, I'd even stay here to live." "Why not? It's a good idea." Carlos squinted. "Grab your Celio and go. There's always work for a specialist like you here." "Yeah, Cecilia Lopez will let me go. And Celio doesn't like changing jobs at all." "No, it's just a dream, but I'll definitely come here more often." "All right, granddaughter," Carlos laughed. "Let's live and see." "Oh, that's it, my caretaker's here. You go for a walk, and I'll go for my injections." "Love you, Grandpa, don't get sick." "Love you too, my dear." Agata walked beautifully towards the city center. There was hardly any snow on the sidewalks. Clicking her heels, the girl skillfully dodged oncoming pedestrians. Suddenly, she felt her foot twist, and there was a crack. "Oh no, not again," Agata thought in horror, looking down at her feet. The heel was treacherously swinging on a thin piece of the sole. "How does this happen? Why do I have such bad luck with heels lately? It's time to switch to sneakers. Dressing up and going for a walk, for heaven's sake." Agata stood there, laughing. It was impossible to walk so confidently. She was about to call a taxi, but her phone, blinking enticingly, shut off. The battery died. "Damn," cursed Agata. "Again? Is it really happening again?" A voice sounded very close. Next to her stood a man, laughing. At first, Agata didn't recognize him and was about to reprimand the stranger for rude behavior, but upon closer inspection, she realized that it was the same guy who helped her free her heel from the grate a few months ago, only this time he was dressed not in work clothes, but in a very decent coat. "Is it you?" the girl exclaimed in surprise. "Looks like it's me," the guy smiled. "I see you have a hobby to breaking heels." "Don't tease me," Agata laughed. "I already feel awkward, and I don't even know how to get home. I was going to call a taxi, but my phone died. Let me give you a ride." "How far is it?" "Oh, no, it's inconvenient. I'd appreciate it if you could just call a taxi for me. That would be enough." "What's the point?" "I have my car right there." The man gestured somewhere. "I actually noticed you from it. I was just about to leave when bam, I saw this scene. I couldn't believe it was you, but it would be hard not to recognize you. Your appearance is too memorable, especially those hair." "Just a regular appearance," Agata blushed. "Hair, yes, rare. It's not often you meet a lady with such a pile of red hair, and without a hat too. Aren't you afraid of catching a cold? The weather here is deceptive, the wind can be biting." "I'm tough," Agata smiled. "All right, I'll agree, but I'm not far. I stopped on the next street." "Perfect, I'm heading that way too. By the way, my name's German." "And yours?" "Agata." "Cool name, my sister's also Agata. By the way, I came here to see her." "Ah, so you're not a local?" "No, it seems we're compatriots. I arranged myself a short vacation. I come here to my sister once a year, take a break from work. Why are we standing here freezing? Let's go to the car. Agata took her new acquaintance by the arm and hopped along, balancing on one leg. She thought to herself that it probably looked extremely funny from the outside. But it wasn't far to walk. After a couple of steps, German stopped and carefully opened the door of his car for Agata. The girl even whistled. The car was expensive and shone beautifully with new paint and the garland lights. Surprised? German chuckled. Well, yes, such a car, Agata mumbled. When we first met, you were in such a dirty jumpsuit. I would never have thought that the one wearing it drives such a car. Ah, that, German was a little flustered. I was just going for cigarettes from the apartment where they were doing repairs. I came in a t-shirt, and it got cold, so I borrowed a jumpsuit from one of the workers. It's strange that you remembered me at all. I have the most ordinary appearance. Your appearance may be ordinary, but your smile isn't. It's clear you're a good person, and you didn't pass by a girl in trouble. That's how I was raised. I agree, there are few people like that nowadays. Oh, and we've arrived. Well, it was nice to meet you, German. Me too, Agata, the young man smiled. And tell me, how long are you still here for? I'm leaving tomorrow morning. Why? I was thinking, maybe I could invite you for a coffee. Forgive me if I seem intrusive, I just don't believe in coincidences, and we've met twice now under the same circumstances. Just imagine the probability of that. I would like to continue our conversation. Well, if it's not meant to be. Don't be upset, Agata smiled. We can meet in our city. I work at the Amadeo Gallery. Do you know it? Oh, an art person. You could say that. Come by, I'll be glad. I'm there almost all the time, except on weekends. You can drop by at lunchtime. Let me give you my phone number. Do you also have an interest in art? You could say that, German nodded, just a different kind of art. I work in the IT field. A programmer, the girl was surprised. Not exactly, although that's what people usually call us colloquially. I prefer to call myself an information systems engineer. Wow, that's far from what I do. Right now we're actually educating our brainchild about culture. Are you an art historian? Not exactly, but... Perfect, German interrupted. I hope you won't refuse to give me some advice. If it's within my abilities, then please. All right, nice meeting you. I'll call you when I'm back. Until we meet again, Agata smiled. At the airport, Agata called Celio to arrange a meeting. To her surprise, her husband refused to come and pick her up. Agata, I'll be at work, he said, take a taxi. But we agreed, the wife pouted. You're arriving at noon. I can't just leave the office to pick you up. What's the problem with calling a taxi? Nothing, Agata sighed, I just thought you'd miss me. I miss you, but I'm working. We'll see each other in the evening. All right, Agata sighed. She made her own way home, where, to her great relief, she didn't find her mother-in-law. Thank goodness she's not here, the girl thought. The last thing I want right now is to listen to her lectures. And what's this? Agata noticed that there was lipstick on her nightstand. It seemed like nothing unusual, but the tube was unfamiliar. She removed the cap and looked in bewilderment at the bright red contents. Does Clara Perez wear such bright colors? She said. I haven't noticed that about her, in her 60s and such colors, strange. And why is this in our bedroom? Agata quickly pushed the find out of her mind and called Cecilia Lopez. She reported on her trip, sent her all the work-related files, and arranged to come only the next day. She slept until evening. Agata woke up when Celio returned. She immediately jumped out of bed and ran to meet her husband. Celio stood at the doorway looking displeased. Is something wrong, dear? She asked, concerned. So you're back? Celio responded somewhat strangely. And where's Mom? I don't know, I came back. she wasn't here, and I don't really feel like calling and asking her whereabouts. All right, maybe it's for the best. What do you mean? Agata frowned. Listen, we need to talk, and Mom would only get in the way right now. You're scaring me. Is it something serious? Yes, Agata, serious. My goodness, is it Grandpa? The girl paled. What does Grandpa have to do with this? Celio replied irritably. Why would you even think of him at a time like this? Well, he's my closest relative, and you're standing there looking like that, so I'm thinking the worst. I haven't even called him yet. Celio silently walked into the kitchen and poured himself some water. After gulping down the entire glass, the man turned around and looked at his wife seriously. Agata, he began, we need to break up. What? Agata gasped, her breath catching unexpectedly and her legs turning cold. What do you mean, break up? Exactly what it sounds like. I've fallen in love with someone else. Are you kidding me right now? This isn't funny, Celio. I'm serious, Agata. I've wanted to tell you everything for a long time, but I hesitated. And before, I wasn't sure about my feelings. Before? What do you mean, before? Have you been with her for long? 6 months. 6 months? Agata exclaimed. But how is that possible? Celio, I don't believe you. This is not true. You're just joking. I'm not joking, the husband snapped. Are you stupid? I'm telling you straight up, I don't love you anymore. I'm with another woman, and she's expecting my child. Oh my God. Agata slowly slid down the wall to the floor, tears welling up in her eyes. And you're only telling me this now? When else? At first, I thought it was all not serious, but then I realized that you and I are not meant to be, and she. Is it because of the child? Agata asked, devastated. It's because of that, right? Tell me. Not only that. I found out about the child recently. I've loved her for a long time. You could say that the pregnancy was the final factor in making the decision. I don't believe it. Agata was openly sobbing now, tears streaming down her face and salty rivulets dripping into her mouth. Agata, calm down. I've done everything I could. I swear, I didn't want this to happen. It just happened, the girl laughed hysterically. It just happened? You cheated on me, hid this affair, and now you're expecting a child. And you call this it just happened? You betrayed me, Celio, and I loved you. Tell me, is Clara Perez aware of this? Was she covering for you? So that's what you were up to when you supposedly stayed late at work and went on trips with friends. Isn't it? Answer me. Stop freaking out, Celio ordered. Yes, it's all true. What else do you want to hear from me? It's all clear. Mom found out only recently, don't blame her, as you always like to do. I told her when I found out about Heliana's pregnancy. Heliana? So that's whose red lipstick is on my nightstand. Have you already brought her into our bedroom? Only once, and not into the bedroom. I put the lipstick there myself. She accidentally dropped it, and I thought it was yours. I just brought her to meet Mom. Are you out of your mind? Bringing your mistress here, into our home, taking advantage of my absence. Agata, don't overreact, Celio snapped. This isn't our home, it's Mom's apartment. I see, Agata laughed, getting up from the floor. Mom's apartment. So that's why you dragged your feet on moving. You've already planned everything for a long time and were just waiting for the right moment. And this witch, she knew everything from the very beginning, so don't try to convince me otherwise. I can imagine how her eyes lit up when she heard about Heliana's pregnancy. Your mother is obsessed with grandchildren. She even hated me when she found out that I couldn't have children. I know everything, and only out of respect for you, I kept quiet, but I shouldn't have. I should have ended it all a long time ago. Agata, what do you want from me? I'm a young, healthy man. I want to be a father, and you can't give me that. It's not too late to break up now. You have your whole life ahead of you. You're beautiful, interesting, smart, build your own personal life, but without me. I swear, there are plenty of guys who don't need children. Are you completely stupid? Agata squealed. Talking about being friends? After such betrayal, I don't want to know you, and you're talking to me about friendship. It's over. Tomorrow, I'll pack my things and leave. Don't even try to chase after me and ask for forgiveness later. Got it? Agata stormed out of the kitchen and locked herself in the bedroom. She cried into her pillow all night long. It's over, she thought. How could he do this to me? Am I to blame for not being able to have children? He swore that it didn't matter to him. It's all because of his mommy dearest. She's been nagging him. I have no doubt she's probably glowing with happiness, knowing that she managed to get rid of me. Let them rot together with their Heliana. I'll manage to live alone. The next day, Agata requested time off from work after lunch, telling Cecilia Lopez that she urgently needed to deal with household matters. There was no time to waste. There was no talk of reconciling with Celio, especially after his confession about the pregnancy of his mistress. Agata would have probably forgiven the infidelity itself, especially since her husband confessed to everything. But this was real betrayal. Since childhood, her grandfather taught her that you can forgive anyone, except for a traitor and a hypocrite. Having deceived once, each of them could easily commit another offense. Agata even felt relieved when she thought it over in the morning. Living under the same roof with a treacherous husband and a tyrant mother-in-law was unbearable, and now it turned out that she was getting rid of two problems at once. When Agata tried to open the apartment with her key, she found that it didn't fit. Wow, they're quick, they've even changed the locks, she thought gleefully. Well, if they don't open, I'll call the police. After all, I have every right to take my things. She pressed the doorbell with all her might. The door remained closed for a long time, but finally, she heard the sound of the latch. Clara Perez appeared in the doorway. Oh, you've shown up, her mother-in-law smirked. We thought you'd disappeared for good. Let me in, I need to gather my things, Agata muttered through her teeth. Her mother-in-law obediently stepped aside, letting the girl inside. To Agata's great surprise, she noticed a pair of high-heeled women's boots in the hallway. We have guests, she smirked. Not in our house, dear, Clara sneered. You no longer live here, don't forget. Agata walked into the room. Sitting on the couch was a girl slightly younger than her. Celio stood, facing away toward the window. Hello, Agata greeted the guest, deliberately raising her tone. You must be Heliana, I presume? Agata, Celio intervened. There's no need for all this. Take what you came for and leave. Right, Agata smiled. I won't distract you, carry on with your business. Agata left and headed to the bedroom. She took out a spacious bag from the wardrobe and began packing her things into it. Unexpectedly, Clara Perez appeared at the doorway accompanied by Heliana. Both watched the girl's actions intently. Need any help? Agata sarcastically asked. Or are you just standing there, entertaining yourselves? You, Heliana, stay here, make sure this girl doesn't take anything unnecessary, Clara smirked, and I'll go get her things from the bathroom. All right, Clara, Celio's mistress responded, but I don't know what she's allowed to take and what she's not. Clara, Agata chuckled to herself, seems like these two have known each other for a while and have already synchronized. Let them be. I'll only take what belongs to me, she stated dryly. I don't need anything that's not mine. If you're worried about the jewelry Celio gave me, they're right there, and the jewelry box on the table, choke on both rings and this too. Agata managed to pull off her wedding ring and tossed it in the woman's direction. It rang loudly as it hit the floor and rolled away. She threw clothes and cosmetics into the bag, reaching for a beautiful carved chest. Hey, Heliana rudely called out, what's this? None of your business, Agata snapped. These are my parents' belongings. Just try reaching for them, I'll rip your arms off without blinking. Juliana recoiled in horror, bumping into the returning Clara Perez, who carried a bag filled to the brim with something. "She's threatening me, Clara," the girl cried out. "How dare you?" Clara lunged at Agata, but she roughly pushed her aside, grabbing the bag from her hands, and headed for the exit. On her way out, she glanced into the living room where Celio was still standing by the window. "Goodbye," Agata said dryly to him, then left the apartment forever. Her husband didn't even turn to look after her. Agata stood by the entrance, waiting for a taxi. She looked disdainfully at her bags, realizing that the past 4.5 years of her life fit so easily into them. She hadn't told her grandfather anything yet. She didn't want to worry him prematurely. The car arrived, and the driver helped load her bags into the trunk. Agata would be with her grandfather in about 15 minutes. When she rang the doorbell, she stood there in complete disarray. She didn't want to burden Carlos with her problems. It might upset the old man. The door was opened by the caregiver. Agata almost jumped in surprise. "Oh, hello," she muttered. "And where is Grandpa?" "Hello, Agata," the woman nodded. "Carlos Martinez felt unwell in the morning, but he's fine now. He called me, and I immediately called for an ambulance." "Oh my God," Agata paled. "Don't worry, it was just a sudden drop in blood pressure. Everything's fine now. He's resting." "Thank God," Agata breathed out and walked into the apartment. The caregiver looked surprised at her bags, but didn't ask any questions. Agata dropped her burden and rushed straight to her grandfather's bedroom. Carlos was half lying, reading some book. Without taking his eyes off the pages, he grumbled indignantly upon hearing the door open. "Cecilia, I asked not to disturb me." "Grandpa," Agata sobbed, "what's wrong?" "Oh," Carlos exclaimed, "Agata, what are you doing here? I asked Cecilia not to call you, not to distract you from work." "Grandpa, she didn't call. Don't scold her. You shouldn't strain yourself now. I came here by myself. But it's only 5:30. Did you leave work early or something? Missed your grandpa while on a business trip? How was the trip?" "Everything's fine, Grandpa," Agata smiled. "Well, you can't fool me. I can see your eyes are teary." "Come on, tell me," Carlos urged. "I could never deceive you," Agata chuckled. "Grandpa, I'm here to stay with you permanently." "What do you mean?" Carlos was surprised and sat up on his pillows. "Lie down, Grandpa, don't get up. We broke up with Celio. If you don't mind, I'll stay with you for a while." "Hold on a second. No, of course, I don't mind. How could you even think that? This is your home too. But what do you mean you broke up? Did you have another argument because of that witch?" "No, Grandpa, this time it's serious." Agata sighed deeply and told Carlos everything. The old man listened, stroking his granddaughter's hair. "He wants to get back at him so badly, it's boiling with anger," Agata summed up. "Revenge is a useless pursuit. His actions will surely come back to him like a boomerang, mark my words. The best thing you can do is just forget." "It's okay, my girl," Carlos embraced his granddaughter. "You're strong, you'll get through this. And I won't abandon you. Let them live as they please. You're too good for that family. It speaks volumes about them to treat someone like you so despicably. Thank God everything came out in the open now. Celio, despite being despicable, did the right thing by confessing. Now you need to file for divorce." "Do you think so?" Agata raised an eyebrow. "Why delay it? I understand your position. You don't intend to go back, even if he crawls back on his knees. And what's the point for him now? He's preparing to become a father, and his mother won't allow it. Forget it, my girl. You're young, beautiful, and simply wonderful. You'll find your love again." "Grandpa, what if I don't find it? I can't have children." Celio initially said it didn't matter to him, but look, he changed his mind as soon as more interesting prospects appeared on the horizon. "Agata," Carlos looked at her seriously, "listen to me, believe me, children are the greatest joy, but if God didn't give them to you, then you have a more important mission. And if so, there will surely be someone who will share your joys and sorrows. The most important thing is not to lose hope. Did you bring your things? Yes, the girl nodded. They're in the hallway. It's even funny that there are only 2 bags there. Can you imagine? Those harpies stood there and watched to make sure I didn't take anything. Imagine that, and I would have left everything except for Mom's jewelry box. But there's no time now to go shopping, and New Year's is just around the corner. By the way, yes, Grandpa nodded, let's go pick out a Christmas tree in a few days, put a huge one in the living room, up to the ceiling, like we used to. Remember? Of course, I remember, Grandpa. How could I forget our Christmas trees? And the decorations? Tell me they're still there. You couldn't have thrown them away. Are you out of your mind to throw them away? You'll say that too. Nowadays, they hang plastic and stamped stuff on trees, but we have real antiques there. Even the rabbit has been preserved, which parents hung on the tree in my childhood. No, dear, everything is intact and safe. When do you have a day off? Tomorrow and the day after tomorrow I have to work, and then that's it, we're off for the holidays. And after January 5th, I'm going on vacation, so we'll have plenty of time together. Celio and I were planning to leave, but you see how everything turned out. I'm definitely not going anywhere alone, but at least we'll spend the holidays together. I'll recover, rest well without constant stress. And after the vacation, I think I'll file for divorce so as not to delay. All right, go ahead, unpack. Your room is always waiting for you. I don't touch anything there, just periodically call for cleaning to tidy up. Get plenty of rest, and everything will work out. I love you so much, Grandpa. Agata hugged the old man tightly. And I love you too. On the last working day, Agata quickly finished all her tasks. She was already living in anticipation of the weekend and vacation. Cecilia Lopez was very pleased with the results of her work, so without a shadow of a doubt, she let her charge go on a long break. Agata, the gallery owner, entered the office. Have you finished all the catalogs? Of course, Cecilia Lopez, Agata replied, peering out from behind the computer. I just need to check the inventory list, and that's it. Excellent, then I won't distract you. I'm going out on business now. You can hand everything over to the girls later and relax. Wish Grandpa a happy holiday season for me. Will do, Agata smiled. An hour later, she was busy with paperwork. After finishing her work, Agata was about to have some coffee when there was a knock on the door. Come in, Agata called out. Agata, one of the gallery workers peeked in shyly. Someone came to see you. Some man named German introduced himself. German? Agata pondered. Oh, right, German, yes. Tell him I'll be down shortly. Well, this is unexpected. Why didn't he even call? Agata thought. Well, I'll find out everything now. It's good that I managed to finish everything. At least we can have a proper conversation. I'll invite him to my favorite cafe for coffee. Agata put on her coat and hurried out of the office. Descending the stairs, she caught herself thinking that she was very pleased with German's visit. She liked him for his straightforwardness and sincerity. He stood near a large mirror downstairs, carefully studying one of the gallery brochures. German, Agata waved to him. The guy looked up and smiled broadly. Why did you come without calling? Well, I must have written down the number wrong then, he shrugged. I called, and some angry man answered. Thank goodness you told me where you work, and I caught you. Honestly, I took a chance. Even if I left empty-handed, it wouldn't have been so disappointing, since I work nearby anyway. Yes, you're just in time, Agata smiled. I just finished my work and was about to have some coffee. Will you join me? With pleasure, German nodded. Then I have one request, Agata squinted playfully. Any whim of yours. Let's not talk about work today. I have a vacation ahead, and honestly, I'm so tired. That's no problem at all. I still have to work until the holidays, then a week off, and then back to the grind. I've already had my vacation. Just got back yesterday and came straight to you. Agata and German settled into a cozy cafe and ordered drinks and desserts. It's freezing today, the guy said, rubbing his cold hands. It's not so bad. Actually, I love winter, Agata replied. Agata, I've noticed that something has changed in you. There's a different look in your eyes, somewhat sad. Are you all right? You don't have to answer. It's not the most appropriate question, considering we hardly know each other, but maybe I can help you with something. Oh, no, everything's fine, Agata smiled, but there was something in her smile that betrayed the lie. German noticed it. Well, if you don't want to talk about it, the guy nodded. You know, the girl suddenly decided, I'll tell you. It's believed that sometimes it's useful to talk things out, especially to someone you don't know well, so there's no bias towards the situation. Well, a couple of days ago, I packed my things and left my husband, or rather, he kicked me out. Nearly 5 years of marriage. He said he had another woman he loved, and she's expecting his child. Well, I didn't argue. I reacted quite calmly and just left. Now I'm living with my grandpa, and you know, I even feel somewhat relieved. That's about it. Wow, German shook his head, looking at Agata, and you're talking about it so calmly? Women usually can't stop themselves from hysterics in such situations. Not everything was smooth for us. I was living in an illusion, closing my eyes to many things, and when I left, I saw everything from the outside. And I had a hard time with my mother-in-law. Grandpa says everything happens for the best, but it's hard to believe right now. I don't know, I think I'll rest now, spend more time with Grandpa. He's really not well, heart failure, his blood pressure dropped sharply. He's a very good person, and I have no one else besides him. What about your parents? I lost my parents when I was 10. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. It's okay. It was so long ago. Grandpa basically raised me. He's an antique dealer. He instilled in me a love for art, and he lives all alone. Only a caregiver comes by. Yeah, German nodded, but it's good that you're there for him now. There are so many lonely elderly people who have no one to help them. No, I'll never abandon Grandpa, Agata asserted confidently. Tomorrow we're going to buy a Christmas tree together, probably not very convenient in a taxi, but let me give you a ride. I have tomorrow off too, nothing much to do. It'll be a joy for me, especially since it's always nice to meet an interesting person. And your grandpa seems like he's one. Oh, yes, Grandpa is quite a character. He always has thousands of stories in reserve. He might even tire you out. Not at all. I get along easily with people. I like to communicate. Apparently, conversation partners feel that and are eager to talk to me. That's for sure, Agata laughed. We don't even know each other, yet it feels like I've known you for 100 years already. I couldn't even talk so freely with my husband. But I still feel uncomfortable asking you to come with us to buy the Christmas tree. And where would we put it? In the car? On the roof? We just damaged the car. We usually buy a huge Christmas tree. Don't worry about that at all, German hurried to reassure Agata. I have a pickup truck. The tree will easily fit in the back. All right, Agata sighed. You convinced me. But I have a question. Go ahead. This won't interfere with your plans at all? You, German, probably have a family, and it would be better to spend time with them than with a woman you barely know and her grandpa. Agata, I don't have a family. Well, I do have parents and a sister, but they live in different cities. My parents moved to the south about 5 years ago, and my sister lives in the capital. I'm completely alone here. Well, not entirely alone. A girlfriend? Agata asked disappointedly, trying not to reveal her feelings. Almost, German smiled. A cat. Worse than any girlfriend, she's very jealous and demanding, but I love her that way, can't help it. Oh, a cat, Agata laughed, and here I was thinking. And what? German squinted. Disappointed? Oh, no, Agata blushed. Why would I be? Well, I don't know, the guy winked at her. Forgive me for being blunt, but I feel like you really like me. I'm good at picking up on these things. Agata turned crimson and lowered her gaze. No, Agata, don't be embarrassed. I really like you too, from the very first meeting. I regretted not asking for your number then. Although you wouldn't have given it to me, being married and all. I'm still married, the girl said. Considering how unfairly your husband treated you, it can't really be called a marriage. And are you not going to file for divorce? I will. My grandpa is also pushing for it, but I want to get myself together first. I'll take care of it after the vacation. I can introduce you to a very good lawyer. No, I don't think I'll need one. We don't have any shared property, no children either. Why don't you have children? German frowned. Oh, forgive me for being tactless. In this situation, it's actually good that you don't. It's just that there's this baby fever going on. People start having kids almost right after the wedding. You seem well off, and I'm sure your husband isn't lacking either. Since we're being honest, I'll tell you how it is. I can't have children. We really wanted to have them, but it didn't work out. Celio accepted it, but as soon as his lover got pregnant, he quickly tucked his tail and ran away from me. Grandpa says that since fate has decided this way, we should seek happiness in another direction. He's absolutely right. Finding yourself is the most important thing now. Once that happens, everything else will fall into place. And a child, you can always adopt. You can love them just as much as your own. Really? What do you think? Well, German, I have to go. I was very happy to talk to you, but my grandpa is already waiting for me. I'll come by tomorrow. Just tell me where and when. By the way, I can give you a ride. I won't refuse, Agata replied playfully. Let's say closer to 3 then, but we need to be done by 6, as Grandpa needs his injections then. Agata didn't even notice how the holidays flew by. During this time, she became very close to German. They often went for walks, talked a lot, and on Christmas, her grandpa even invited the guy over. Grandpa really liked him. Agata, her grandpa cheerfully asked her as she was putting on makeup to prepare for the guest's visit, "This young man is really nice. He likes you, it's obvious, and your eyes light up when he's around." "Don't make things up," the granddaughter pouted, "we're just friends." "It's rare to meet such an interesting and kind person." "Yeah, tell me, they're friends." "For now, maybe that's true, but you won't fool me, there are definitely sparks flying between you two. Come on, don't drag out the divorce, I have a feeling German will propose to you soon." "Grandpa, what are you talking about? We've only known each other for a couple of weeks." "What proposal? And besides, he's a confirmed bachelor. A man is convinced he doesn't need anyone until he meets a woman he's crazy about. And it seems German has met her. I proposed to your grandma a month after we met. I didn't see any reason to wait. We liked each other, we enjoyed being together. And love? There was love, such that after her death, I couldn't look at anyone else." "Grandpa," Agata protested, "things were different in your time. Nowadays you need to live together, get used to each other, understand each other." "Oh, don't make things up. You and Celio tried to adapt, but what good did it do? Everything's the same in every era, only the decorations change. If people really love each other, they don't need to test that feeling. You feel it in your heart, you won't be mistaken." "Do you think so?" The girl frowned. "Yes, it should all just tighten up here so much that everything else fades away." Carlos tapped his chest. "I feel it." Agata didn't have time to finish her sentence. Carlos suddenly paled and began to fall. "Grandpa," Agata cried out in alarm, "what's wrong with you? Where are your pills?" Carlos slowly slumped to the floor. Agata barely managed to catch him. She immediately dialed the ambulance and then called German. "German, come quickly, Grandpa isn't feeling well, he's all white." "Did you call an ambulance?" "Wait, don't worry, I'm nearby, I'll be there in about 10 minutes." Agata frantically rubbed her grandpa's hands. She found some pills in his breast pocket and placed a couple under his tongue, as he usually did himself. "It's all right, granddaughter," Carlos muttered barely audibly. "Everything will be fine for you." Carlos fell silent and closed his eyes. The girl cried, clutching his hands. When the ambulance arrived, there was nothing more they could do. The paramedic recorded the time of death. At that moment, German entered the apartment. Understanding that something terrible had happened, he hugged Agata, who was trying to push the doctors away from her grandpa, and led her to another room. "Agata," he gently tapped her cheeks, "just calm down now. Sit here, I'll take care of everything." At the funeral, Agata could barely stand on her feet. People approached her one by one to express their condolences, but she responded mechanically, not recognizing anyone around her. Only German's warm hand, clasping hers, somehow connected Agata to reality. Carlos was buried in the same grave where his daughter and son-in-law had lain for 20 years. For a long time, Agata couldn't come to her senses, but German wasn't about to just let her slip into the clutches of apathy. Remembering her stories, he almost immediately started taking her to the racetrack. The fresh frosty air, permeated with the scent of horse manure, and the deep snorting of the horses quickly brought Agata back to life. She even began to smile. The vacation was coming to an end, but Cecilia Lopez, seeing how her assistant was coping, didn't rush her. She told Agata to return when she felt better. German never left the girl's side for a moment. He constantly told her different stories, cooked food, practically moved in with her into her grandpa's apartment. Agata didn't mind. The guy even brought his cat. Usually aloof from strangers, the cat named Margot immediately took a liking to Agata. She slept on her head, constantly asked to be picked up, which surprised her owner. Well, German laughed. "This madam usually doesn't acknowledge anyone but me." "Agata, tell me your secret." "I don't know," the girl shrugged, stroking the plush, iridescent black fur. "I've never had cats, only a parrot. Maybe she senses my sorrow. By the way, yes, cats are unusually sensitive, and I see that your interaction is benefiting you. Whenever you go to feed her, you always make yourself a couple of sandwiches. Did you think I didn't notice? Look, even your cheeks have become rosy. So, Margot, keep up the good work. We need to bring Agata back to life." The cat, as if understanding, began to purr louder and hypnotize Agata with her huge, amber eyes. Gradually, everything fell into place. Agata returned to work, and the bustling activity helped distract her from negative thoughts. With German, she felt completely safe. This man touched something in her soul that had been dormant before. And soon Agata realized that she truly loved him. He eventually moved in with her, as Agata flatly refused to move to him. Every little detail in the apartment was dear to her, and she simply couldn't bear the thought of her grandfather's memory being covered in dust or, worse, trampled by tenants or new owners. 6 months passed when Agata filed for divorce. She had completely forgotten about Celio, who hadn't tried to remind her of himself, but she had to address the matter when German simply approached her one morning while she was making coffee, got down on one knee, and handed her a ring. Agata couldn't believe her eyes. Of course, she agreed, because now she couldn't imagine a single day of her life without German, but formalities needed to be settled. At the same time, she entered into her inheritance rights. When the notary read out the will, Agata's hair stood on end. She had no idea that her grandfather owned such a huge estate. According to the will, both apartments, the entire collection of valuables, and an astronomical sum from the bank account were bequeathed to her. It turns out, Carlos had been saving money all his life, hardly spending anything on himself. In complete shock, Agata left the notary's office. German was waiting for her in the car. "Well, what?" he smiled. "German, I don't even know how to say it. I knew, of course, that Grandpa was quite wealthy, but to this extent. Look," she handed him the folder. "Now I'm apparently the envy of brides." "Wow," the guy whistled, examining the papers. "And what do you plan to do with such an estate?" I don't know, Agata shook her head. I don't need anything except the apartment and Grandpa's collection. Well, where do I need so much? Even grandchildren would have enough, but I can't even have children. Don't rush events, remember, you can always adopt a baby. I can't raise someone else's child, German, Agata sighed. I've thought about it, but then you can get involved in charity. I think Carlos Martinez would be very proud of you and would be happy that his fortunes are going to a good cause. Well, yeah, Agata pondered, but I don't understand anything about it at all. Well, Agata, if there's a will, there's a way to figure it out easily. That's true. 3 days later, there was a knock on the door. Agata was alone. German had gone away on business. Odd, the girl thought, I'm not expecting anyone. I wonder who it is. She approached the door and looked through the peephole. Almost immediately, Agata recoiled, realizing who was standing on the other side. What do you want? She said with a chilling voice. Agata, please open the door, we need to talk, Celio replied. We have nothing to talk about, Agata smirked. The papers have been filed, divorce in a month, see you in court. Agata, her husband shouted, this is very important, we won't take up much of your time. Agata thought she really didn't want to see her husband and mother-in-law. She couldn't even imagine what they wanted to talk about, but still decided to open the door. Well, she began invitingly, what's so important? You're not going to let us in? Clara Perez asked. No, I don't think so. Speak your mind and leave. Come on, why are you pushing us away so quickly? We're not strangers, after all, Celio interjected. You're wrong, dear, the girl laughed. You are as much strangers as can be. Why did you come? Agata, Celio lowered his gaze. We wanted to apologize. Yes, apologize, repeated the mother-in-law. Apologize for what? Agata wondered. We have all our questions resolved, there's nothing to talk about, it's all in the past. Agata, you don't understand. I want you to come back to me. What? The girl opened her mouth in surprise. What do I have to do? Are you sure you haven't mixed anything up? After what happened? And what about your Heliana? I realized that I only love you, Agata. Celio reached out to her. Heliana was a mistake. I've reevaluated everything. I can't live without you. Please forgive me. Well, what about the child? The child? Celio faltered. That which got pregnant by someone else, Clara intervened. She fooled Celio, you know. It's outrageous. When the baby was born, I found it strange that he didn't look anything like Celio. Well, I insisted on a paternity test. The DNA test revealed everything to us. It turned out that Celio couldn't have children at all, and I blamed you for everything. Forgive me, Agata. Oh, I see. Well, what does that have to do with me? Well, Celio hesitated. I realized I was such a fool. I don't know how to make up for my guilt to you, but I'm ready to do anything. We also heard that Carlos Martinez passed away 6 months ago. We're sorry it's late, but please accept our condolences, the mother-in-law spoke with a sickly sweet voice. Agata found it strange that they were showing such concern. Her grandfather's mother-in-law had never liked him, and Celio didn't particularly care for him either. They constantly asked Agata to take money from him, but she never even thought about it. And then it dawned on her. It's a very strange coincidence that you came right now. Grandfather's death was known long ago. He was quite well known in the city. You probably heard about it, but for some reason you came only now. But you could have at least called 6 months ago. Agata squinted cunningly, but there's another thing. The notary who read my grandfather's will is your good friend, a family friend, you might say. How did I not realize it right away? I bet he called you right away and told you that I became the owner of a huge fortune. Isn't that so? Don't even think about lying. I see right through you. You're mistaken, Clara protested. By the look in your eyes, I see that I'm not. That's it, leave and forget your way here. I have a new life now, and you can live yours however you want. And, Celio, don't even think about inventing anything. The inheritance is not our joint property, even though I received it while still married to you. It's the law. And now, goodbye. Agata slammed the door shut with a bang. Her heart was pounding desperately, but the girl felt an extraordinary sense of relief, and then a warm wave began to rise from her stomach. Agata didn't immediately realize she was feeling nauseous, and she barely managed to run to the bathroom. What's this? Nerves, excitement, she thought. Well, I showed them, they'll know how to cause pain to others. Grandfather was right. Celio's betrayal came back like a boomerang. Who would have thought they'd have the audacity to come here? I'm shocked by people. Thank God, the divorce won't take long, just a month and I'll be free. Agata felt nauseous again. This time the girl was frightened. She had never felt like this before, and her breasts were sore. Thoughts raced through her head at breakneck speed. Celio can't have children. Even Clara Perez admitted that she treated me so badly, considering me barren, and I haven't had my period in ages. I thought it was all because of nerves, but now I'm feeling nauseous. But what if? Agata quickly washed her face, threw on a jacket, and rushed out onto the street. She dashed to the nearest pharmacy and bought what she needed. Back home, she took a pregnancy test. The minutes of waiting seemed to stretch on forever, and finally, the result appeared on the test strip. First, one bright pink line, followed by another, slightly fainter one. Agata took the test in trembling hands and stared at it for a long time without blinking. God, it can't be, she said aloud, this must be a mistake. But deep down, she knew there was no mistake. All these years she had lived under the belief that she couldn't have children, and the reason, it turns out, wasn't her. And the doctors? They all, without exception, said that nothing could be done, waving their tests in front of her, swearing that the likelihood of conception was 0. But it was all a lie, a terrible misunderstanding, a ridiculous mistake. No one even bothered to check that something was wrong with Celio. Agata grabbed the phone in a frenzy, her hands trembling and unresponsive. Somehow she managed to calm down and was about to call German, but she changed her mind. She turned on the camera, took a picture of the test, and simply sent it to her beloved. She didn't wait for a response. She already knew everything would be fine.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe.